as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Almighty God, who in thy wisdom and goodness hast appointed the office of rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of men and women, we beseech thee to behold with thy abundant favor us, thy servants, whom thou hast been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in these islands. Let thy blessing descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of these islands and those whose interest thou hast committed to our charge. And this we beg for Jesus Christ's sake. Amen. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.
Morning, members. House is now in session. Members, the minutes from the 16th of February have been circulated. Are there any amendments? No amendments. The minutes will be confirmed as printed. Messages from the governor? There are none. Announcements by the speaker. The announcement this morning is that MP Keynes will not be present today. Messages from the Senate? There are none. Papers and communications to the House. There's one paper this morning in the name of the Minister of Economy and Labor. Minister?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly the template entitled Tips and Other Gratuitous Policy Statement pursuant to Schedule 1A of the Employment Act 2000.
Thank you, Minister. Petitions? There are none. Statements? There are statements this morning. There were 5 statements. The first is in the name of the Premier. Premier, would you like to present your statement this morning?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to you.
Morning.
Mr. Speaker, it will no doubt be recalled by this honorable House and the public that in the 2023 speech from the throne, the government set out the following undertaking, and I quote, "The vision of former Premier, the Honorable Dame Jennifer Smith, was for Bermuda to strengthen the historic, familial, and cultural ties to the Caribbean. This year marks the 20th anniversary of Bermuda's entry into CARICOM as associate members. In this anniversary year, the government will renew the vision of Dame Jennifer, initiating a consultation process leading to full membership in CARICOM," end quote. Mr. Speaker, in some quarters, this announcement was greeted warmly, recognizing the inextricable links of Bermudians of all races with the Caribbean. Our links are familial, economic, business-related, cultural, and historic. The pursuit of full membership in CARICOM was recognized by most as a natural progression of our affiliation with its regional body. Accordingly, on behalf of the Governor of Bermuda, I invited Her Excellency the Governor to pursue the grant of an entrustment to the Government of Bermuda from the UK government, by which we will be permitted to commence the process of exploring full membership in CARICOM. Mr. Speaker, as is so often the case, the support for this initiative was drowned out by a minority chorus of disapproval. We were told that U.S. pre-clearance and visa-free access for Bermudians to the United States would be in jeopardy. The specter of international business angst at full membership was hinted at, and it culminated in us being told that, quote, "we do not belong in that sphere," end quote. Mr. Speaker, those views are completely unsupported by the facts. Honorable members will recall that the government of Bermuda's proposal to initiate the move to full membership in CARICOM was warmly welcomed by the UK government and expressed so by the Minister of State responsible for the overseas territories. Mr. Speaker, U.S. pre-clearance has been a benefit to Bermudians for almost 50 years, and a relationship with the United States built up over decades is one that we value and work tirelessly to strengthen. Our government would never put that relationship at risk, nor would we jeopardize the pre-customs clearance benefit enjoyed by Bermudians and our visitors for decades. In any event, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to advise this Honorable House and the public that the government has now received the entrustment from the Minister of State for the Overseas Territories. I can advise this Honorable House that the entrustment authorizes the governor to delegate authority to conduct negotiations under Section 62(2) of Bermuda's Constitution. Mr. Speaker, the entrustment is in a standard form and is consistent with previous entrustments granted by the UK government. In keeping with previous practice, I have been invited to sign the document confirming the government's acceptance of the delegated authority. Mr. Speaker, I should note that the entrustment refers to previous documents, one of which dates from the 11th of March, 2016. Having reviewed that document, this Honorable House and the public might be interested to know that the United Kingdom government granted the previous One Bermuda Alliance government permission to commence formal negotiations and to conclude agreements in the following areas of external affairs. Agreements within the ambit of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, Pan American Health Organization, Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, Caribbean Public Health Agency, or any other Caribbean regional organization or institution of which Bermuda is a member or associate member as it relates to Bermuda, and other Caribbean regional affairs of interest to or affecting Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, this entrustment was signed, indicating acceptance of its terms by the Honorable Member, the former Premier, Michael Dunkley. This perhaps explains why the Leader of the Opposition did not address full membership in CARICOM in his initial reply to the throne speech. They knew of this entrustment, while we, on this side of the House, and indeed the public, did not. In any event, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that this means that the expiration of full membership in CARICOM will enjoy bipartisan support in this House, unless, of course, this is another position on which the opposition wishes to reverse itself. Mr. Speaker, honorable members will recall that the honorable member, the Deputy Premier and Minister of Home Affairs, has responsibility for CARICOM affairs. As such, having executed this entrustment on behalf of the Governor of Bermuda, he will begin the process of consultation in accordance with the government's throne speech promise. Mr. Speaker, the average Bermudian might be asking themselves, what's in this for me? Our government understands the potential benefits of a close relationship with our sister islands and countries. These benefits go beyond the cultural and historic, but also toward possible economic benefits to our country and opportunities for our Bermudian people. For too long, we've been told to distance ourselves from the Caribbean, often by those who had no issue with benefiting financially from relationships established in the region while denying our government and our people the same opportunity. Mr. Speaker, we see a strengthened relationship with CARICOM potentially creating many new and exciting opportunities. There are opportunities to drive down prices through increased competition and partnerships, broader access to professional and technical training, and new markets for Bermudians seeking to sell their goods and services overseas. New opportunities for foreign direct investment and new opportunities to learn from the wisdom, mistakes, and experience of countries with many differences, but also many similarities and shared challenges. All these opportunities will be explored in the upcoming consultation. Mr. Speaker, I can also advise the Honorable House that I will attend the Heads of Government meeting of CARICOM in Georgetown, Guyana this coming week. I'll inform the CARICOM Secretariat that Bermuda has received a letter of entrustment from the United Kingdom, which will allow the Honorable Deputy Premier to commence discussions with CARICOM to obtain details that will inform the consultation. In closing, Mr. Speaker, this government believes that closer ties to CARICOM will be good for Bermuda and good for Bermudians. And now, with the entrustment from the United Kingdom government, we can commence the consultation process promised in last year's speech from the throne in earnest. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Deputy Premier. Deputy, would you like to present your statement at this time?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Good morning to members and the listening public. I rise today to update the Honorable House on the work undertaken on the Bermuda Ocean Prosperity Plan. Mr. Speaker, initiated in June of 2019, the Bermuda Ocean Prosperity Program, otherwise known as BOP, is an exciting program aimed at creating an integrated marine spatial plan for the entirety of Bermuda's 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. This plan will be a tool to best manage Bermuda's greatest resource coherently and to ensure that human activities take place in an efficient, safe, and sustainable way. This plan will benefit all Bermudians, those of us here now and those that are to come. Mr. Speaker, over the last 4 years, the government, in partnership with the Wade Institute and the Bermuda Institute of Ocean Science, BIOS, has taken an extensive consultation with all marine-related stakeholders and the general public with an aim to developing a plan that recognizes the uniqueness and importance of Bermuda's marine environment, focused on providing positive outcomes for both humans and nature. The government has recognized the international commitment to fully protect 30% of the world's oceans by 2030. With this in mind, Bermuda has set a reasonable expectation of protecting 20% of our 464,000 kilometer squares EEZ. The plan is also grounded in the principles of being ecosystem-based, integrated, place-based, adaptive, strategic, and participatory. Over the last several years, there has been numerous reiterations of the draft plan that has been continually modified and refined using the feedback from all of the many marine-related stakeholder groups, as well as the public. These groups include those focused on conservation, economic development, education, fishing, tourism, and utilities, to name just a few. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to say that I now have a draft plan for consideration. This plan will soon be released to the public for comment. Mr. Speaker, I can announce that I am now in receipt of a draft outline marine management plan from the Fishermen's Association of Bermuda, FAB as they're known as. I would note that a submission from the FAB was promised for last September. The government acknowledges the work by the FAB in creating their draft, as well as their willingness to share the document for review, and we will consider how it can contribute to the common goals of managing Bermuda's waters. I will note that the consultation process continues, and the public and stakeholders will be invited in due course to provide feedback on the BOP draft plan. In order to ensure that all comments are carefully considered, I will be inviting a panel of advisors to review all of the comments received. This panel would include persons with expertise in marine-related areas who have been independent from the Marine Spatial Plan drafting process. The plan will then provide to me recommendations on how to address any issues that have been raised. The submission of the FAB will be reviewed by the panel for consideration. Mr. Speaker, all of the draft plans, background documents, and consultation reports can be found on the website www.bermudaoceanprosperity.org. I encourage everyone, and I mean everyone, to visit the site and see the good work that has been done and that is currently underway. Mr. Speaker, I look forward to updating this Honorable House in due course when we receive the results from the independent review and as we move forward to tackle the important challenges that climate change brings us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Works. Minister,
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
morning.
Mr. Speaker, in keeping with prior commitments made by myself to keep the public informed, I rise again in this honorable House today to address the state of our national highways and plans to address their deplorable condition. Mr. Speaker, I begin by reminding members and the listening public that there are multiple circumstances happening simultaneously that are contributing to the state of our roadways. One, the $250 million Belco capital plan. Two, phase one of the government's water and wastewater master plan. Three, excessive amounts of rain over the 2023 calendar year. And four, unreliability of the asphalting assets earned by both the government and private industry. I will go into detail point by point shortly, but before I do that, Mr. Speaker, I wish to again apologize to the people of Bermuda and those who live here and use our roads for the condition they are in. While I recognize that words mean nothing without substantive action, just know that the government has plans to address these issues. Mr. Speaker, the first item that is contributing to the state of our roadways is the $250 million Belco capital plan. This project sees major improvements to the company's underground high-voltage electrical cable system that is intended to serve all Bermuda into the future with more reliable, safe, and cost-effective electricity. When announced in 2020, it was intended for this project to last 36 months. But with any major infrastructure project, there will be unforeseen issues. While I cannot comment on specific details of the project, it is advised that there have been delays resulting from supply chain issues, unavailability of specialized personnel, and excessive rain. Mr. Speaker, currently the Belco trenching works on Middle Road in Southampton have been placed on hold by them until April 2024. However, it is intended for the company to restart in April with Pool Hill works on Middle Road in Warwick from Campion to Belmont, and hope to complete those works by the end of June 2024. As always, and in conjunction with Belco, I will keep the public informed as they progress. So it makes no sense to pave this portion of roads until the Pool Hills are completed. Mr. Speaker, the second item contributing to the state of our roadways is the phase one of the government's water and wastewater master plan. The purpose of this is to protect our freshwater supplies and ensure that the sewage we produce is properly disposed of in a more environmentally conscious way for the eastern parishes. Specifically, this project saw the excavating of our roadways in Hamilton Parish, St. David's, and St. George's to install new utility infrastructure pipelines. I'm pleased to say that there will be no more digging up of the roadways in these areas associated with this project. As stated in this Honorable House in July 2023, the new East End water facilities are operational, with the remaining already installed pipes in the process of finalizing connections and commissioning. Mr. Speaker, just to remove any possible ambiguity, there will be no more excavating of roads in St. David's and St. George's associated with this project. That, however, does not mean that if an underground pipe failure occurs, that ministry staff or contractors will not repair the issues. It simply means there will not be hundreds of feet in road excavating occurring at once. With this said, the ministry is now able to begin the permanent asphalting of the affected areas, and I am proud to say that this has already begun, some portions even completed. Mr. Speaker, this can be seen on York Street in St. George's, where East End Asphalt was retained to asphalt the roadways. There are plans throughout the next fiscal year to asphalt Middle Road in Flats, from North Shore Road to Store Hill, then Middle Road in Warwick from Belmont to Campion, and possibly beyond. In addition, subject to how the former works progress, then possibly asphalt Stokes Point Road down to Mullet Bay Road in St. George's, then continue onto York Street. This completing the connection to the new completed paved works. Although, Mr. Speaker, this brings me to the last two items that have contributed significantly to the present state of our roads: excessive amounts of rain over the 2023 calendar year and the unreliability of asphalting assets owned by both the government and private industry. Mr. Speaker, like most other construction projects, asphalting relies on two things: adequate assets to help get the job done and good weather. Over the past few years, especially in 2023, the government has not been afforded either of these. Mr. Speaker, substantial rain has caused major issues in our roads infrastructure, as many members can attest. Last year, the island received 77.37 inches of rain, the second wettest calendar year accumulation since 1902, according to the Bermuda National Weather Service. Not only has this rainfall caused the postponement of paving, as obviously asphalt laying cannot be done in the rain, this increased amount of rain has created a plethora of potholes in the existing asphalt. Mr. Speaker, adding to this issue is the unreliability of asphalting supplies and equipment. In this honorable House and in the public domain, I have been extremely forthcoming regarding the state of government's asphalting assets, as I detailed in my statement on December 15, 2023, and I quote, "The government's physical assets are aging. In this case, the machinery that supports road paving works is also aging and therefore routinely out of service for repairs. The unreliability of these machines, the asphalt plant and asphalt miller in particular, cause the asphalt teams to slow their production. Currently, both assets are out of service and have been for most of the year, awaiting repairs." End quote. Mr. Speaker, since that statement, I can confirm that the asphalt miller is operational. However, the ministry's asphalt plant remains inoperable. So as the plant has been down, the potholes cannot be fixed by using government asphalt. As such, when situations like this arise, the ministry depends on the private sector to supplement, in this case, Eastern Asphalt, as the other producer of bulk asphalt. However, Mr. Speaker, for all of the month of January, their asphalt plant has also been inoperable as it was down for regular maintenance. Thusly, while the ministry continues to grapple with the excessive amounts of potholes attributed to weather and lack of investment in years past, the asphalt producer in the private sector could not supplement. Mr. Speaker, this resulted in the ministry's asphalting teams using bagged asphalt supplies to manually fill potholes. These bagged asphalt bags have to be purchased from private vendors who also only have a limited supply on island. Whilst bagged asphalt temporarily fixes a pothole, it slows road repairs tremendously. When there is fresh asphalt available, approximately 1 to 3 tons per day of asphalt can be laid, which can cover multiple potholes in a single day along a single road stretch. When using bagged asphalt, multiple bags are needed to fill one pothole, and the asphalting teams with short supply of bagged asphalt could only accomplish a few potholes a day. Mr. Speaker, thankfully I can advise that Eastern Asphalt's plant has now returned to service and is producing asphalt as of Monday, February 12th. Acknowledging that the ministry's plant is still down, this week technical officers have met with representatives of the company to solidify production availability to recommence large paving works. As always, I will keep the public informed as paving begins. Finally, Mr. Speaker, successive governments have not been able to invest the type of finances in maintaining our infrastructure that is required. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, at the beginning of this statement today, I emphasized that government has plans to address the state of our roads. In the aforementioned statement on December 15, 2023, I detailed that the ministry is currently in negotiations with Aztec Industries, a leading provider of asphalt plants and paving equipment in the United States, to provide a new plant, replacement asphalt equipment, and maintenance support. In December 2023, representatives of the company traveled to the island, observing the process and the operation of equipment. At this time, the company offered training for our asphalt teams at their headquarters in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The ministry gladly accepted the proposal, and last month, 15 staff members received training on new techniques and applications to enhance the asphalt laying process. Training for the remainder of the team will be conducted on island. The Cabinet will shortly consider the details of purchasing a new plant and replacement asphalt equipment from the company. Funding in this year's capital budget has been identified and will be used to pay for the equipment. Mr. Speaker, in the interim, and now that fresh asphalt supplies are available from Eastern Asphalt, the following works will recommence over the succeeding months. 1. Accelerate the repairs to all potholes reported to potholes@gov.pm. Incidentally, since the beginning of last year, 584 emails have been received and 533 have been addressed. 2. Watford Bridge joint hills paving to complete that work. 3. Collectors Hill and South Road Junction, and whilst some of that work was done this week, there still needs to be some addressing of actually Collectors Hill. 4. South Shore Road at Henry VIII, and the continued reinstatement of Harrington Sound Road through Middle Road. Mr. Speaker, I hope this update provides all with a clear understanding of the current situation and plan going forward. We are fully committed to addressing the dreadful state of our roads as quickly as possible. Let me end where I began, Mr. Speaker, by apologizing to all road users and thank the public for their patience and understanding. We will continue our efforts to advance the paving of our roads at an increased pace. As always, Mr. Speaker, I will keep this House and the public informed as we progress. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Labor and Economy. Economy and Labor, rather. Minister?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Morning.
I am pleased to introduce in the Honorable House of Assembly a template tips and other gratuitous policy statement pursuant to the Employment Protection of Employee Tips and Other Gratuitous Amendment Act 2023. Mr. Speaker, as members of this Honorable House may recall, the Amendment Act, which is due to come into operation on the 1st of March 2024, provides for the management, protection, and fair distribution of employee tips and other gratuitous, and prohibits employers and their directors and shareholders from sharing in any tips, tip pool, or other gratuitous unless provided by the Amendment Act. Accordingly, Mr. Speaker, every employer whose employees commonly receive tips or other gratuitous, or whose business is in an industry or sector within which employees commonly receive tips or other gratuitous, shall have a clear written policy statement in place which provides for how tips and other gratuitous are to be managed, protected, and fairly distributed. Mr. Speaker, to assist employers and aid in the compliance with the Amendment Act, the Ministry of Economy and Labor has created a template policy statement which employers can implement. This is particularly aimed at small to medium-sized businesses that may not have a robust human resource structure and/or are not unionized. Mr. Speaker, the template policy statement is compliant with the requirements under Section 1A of the Amendment Act and includes provisions such as the definition of tips, other gratuitous, tip pool, and payment arrangements, employees' rights and employers' responsibilities pursuant to the Amendment Act, whether the employer encourages customers to pay tips or other gratuitous, whether a tip pool is permitted at the workplace, how other gratuitous are to be collected and redistributed, and by whom, when redistribution and other gratuitous will be made in the normal course and when the employee is on leave, the persons to whom the redistribution of other gratuities applies, the employer's criteria for the redistribution of other gratuities, and the investigation and resolution process for complaints filed with the employer pursuant to the Amendment Act. Mr. Speaker, this template policy statement, along with the procedural guidance published pursuant to the Amendment Act, will aid in employer adherence to the legislation and will help prevent the misapplication of employee tips and other gratuities. Mr. Speaker, effective the 1st of March 2024, all employees are to be presented with their employer's policy statement in relation to employee tips and other gratuities, and employers are to put procedures in place that will assist employees in understanding their policy statement. Mr. Speaker, any employer who contravenes this requirement of the Amendment Act will be liable to a civil penalty, which may be imposed by the Department of Labor or the Employment and Labor Relations Tribunal. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to be able to address this honorable house again and in such short order, as it is a testament to the work taking place within the ministry to strengthen the rights of employees and safeguard the protections afforded to employees within Bermuda. It has been argued for some time that employees should be able to retain their rightfully earned tips and other gratuities, and we have brought this to fruition through robust and sound legislation. Mr. Speaker, I am assured by industry and other relevant employer representatives that this additional level of preparedness is welcomed and will assist with limiting any confusion that may result in any unintended abuse of the legislation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Cabinet. Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today I am pleased to announce the release of the draft City of Hamilton Plan 2024, which has been prepared by the Department of Planning to guide development activity within the City of Hamilton. Mr. Speaker, the House will recall that the Department of Planning issued the City of Hamilton Plan consultative draft in January 2023 for public consultation. That signified a new and earlier step in what will be a three-stage plan making process. The department has carefully considered the content of all submissions received as part of that initial consultation phase and updated key background data and refined the content of the plan to reflect its findings. Mr. Speaker, the premise behind the consultative draft plan was to have an earlier phase of the plan-making process, which would enable the department to front-load consultation efforts. By providing people with an early opportunity to comment on the plan, the emerging issues could be identified, and the draft plan, which I am now presenting today, could then be a more solidified representation of policy direction. The effectiveness of this consultation strategy will be determined by the level and nature of the responses that are received as part of the forthcoming consultation phase. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with efforts to bolster stakeholder participation at the earliest possible stage in the process, the department undertook a widespread consultation exercise in support of the consultative draft plan, utilizing various mediums. This included targeted stakeholder presentations to agents, architects, the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation, the Chamber of Commerce, the Corporation of Hamilton, and the real estate sector. There was a live radio interview, in-person pop-up sessions at various locations throughout the city, as well as an extensive social media outreach throughout the consultation period. Mr. Speaker, the draft plan is accompanied by the City Survey Report 2024. This document contains a significant amount of background data and analysis work, which has been used to inform the content of the draft plan. The City Survey Report has been updated from the previous version to include updated data. Crucially, this document now also contains details of consultation responses and the department's responses to the issues arising. This ensures that people are fully informed about how the department has processed the comments that it received and how those responses have been used to further shape the plan. Mr. Speaker, the city of Hamilton is the heartbeat of our island, and the social and economic success of the city has a significant impact upon the overall success of the wider island. With this in mind, it is imperative that we have a progressive land use plan for the city, which is equipped with the necessary tools to enable the city to flourish and to provide a framework for pragmatic and responsible responses to changing circumstances. It is also important to acknowledge that land use planning is only one of a multitude of complex factors which contribute to the performance of the city. The Corporation of Hamilton clearly undertakes a wide range of duties which contribute positively to the city, including its overall responsibility for the city's infrastructure networks. Mr. Speaker, the content of the draft plan is driven by the overarching principle of placemaking, which recognizes the cyclical economic benefits which can be attained through creating spaces or places which are distinctive, welcoming, safe, accessible, and connected. Increasing vacancy rates and the general decline in the environmental quality of urban centers has been taking place around the world over the last 20 to 25 years, largely because of the seismic shift towards online retailing. Different jurisdictions have been attempting to address this decline to save towns and cities, and one of the emerging successful global solutions is to focus on the quality of the place, as the draft plan does. Mr. Speaker, if you can create quality and appealing places, people will ultimately spend more time and money in such places. Furthermore, there is also recognition that there is a need for a more diverse range of uses within urban areas. The draft plan incorporates these considerations and can make a significant contribution to the city's long-term success. Mr. Speaker, another important component of the draft plan is that, similar to the Northeast Hamilton Local Plan 2022, it proposes a discretion-based approach to decision making. Discretion-based planning systems are employed in other parts of the world, and in essence, what it means is that decisions are taken through applying land use plans in their entirety, enabling balanced and informed decisions led by a set of clearly defined overarching principles. Mr. Speaker, this approach removes the need for rigid numerical standards, which have proven to be increasingly problematic within the city in recent years in terms of developer viability. Instead, under a discretion-based approach, the focus will be on ensuring consistency with clearly articulated principles and the substantive issues which really matter, rather than predefined numerical parameters which offer minimal flexibility and which can be an unreasonable obstacle to the betterment of the city. Mr. Speaker, the draft plan represents a formal legislated stage of the plan making process in accordance with the Development and Planning Act 1974. And I encourage all relevant stakeholders to take the opportunity to review the plan and provide the department with their feedback. This feedback, which may take the form of objections and or representations, will be considered by the department with the aim of resolving all objections where possible. For any objections that remain unresolved, those cases will be referred to an objections tribunal to opine and ultimately make recommendations to myself as minister before the content of the plan is finalized and ratified for approval and use. Mr. Speaker, the draft plan is available to view via the Department of Planning's website. All comments must be submitted through the department's online customer self-service portal. Anyone who is interested in finding out more about the draft plan can visit the department's website at www.planning.gov.bm. Mr. Speaker, I would like to acknowledge the hard work of the Department of Planning and thank them for getting the draft plan to this stage. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank the Corporation of Hamilton for its input into the draft plan and for taking the time to engage productively with the department in providing background data, feedback and in contributing to the policy development. Mr. Speaker, as part of the planning reforms being implemented by the department, the next major project in policy development will be the review of the Bermuda Plan in 2018, or the Bermuda Plan 2018, sorry, despite that document having only been adopted in 2021. It has become increasingly clear from the department's various consultation efforts, in addition to the day-to-day conversations it has with its customers, that there is significant appetite for the Bermuda Plan to take a similar approach to decision-making as the emerging city plan. Mr. Speaker, recent coverage in local media outlets with regards to requirements for EV charging stations under the Bermuda Plan 2018 magnifies the value of the discretion-based approach to decision-making proposed within the new city plan. This policy has value as part of the government's longer-term plan for transitioning, and I'm referring to the EV policy, has value for the government's longer-term plan for transitioning to greener energy and the goal to reduce our carbon footprint. This was resoundingly recognized by this House when the Bermuda Plan 2018 was unanimously passed in June of 2021. And I would add, Mr. Speaker, that that was after significant public consultation as well. Mr. Speaker, the recent media coverage highlighted challenges in the application of the policy relating to electric vehicle charging stations, in that it does not provide the Development Applications Board with the discretion to waive the requirements specified in this clause if the grounds in support of the application as submitted by the applicant justify the exercise of the board's discretion. Mr. Speaker, this government is focused on ensuring that all local businesses, inclusive of small and medium-sized enterprises, are successful. And when the laws of this land stifle or frustrate entrepreneurship unnecessarily, we will change the laws so that they do not stifle and frustrate. Mr. Speaker, under the Development and Planning Act 1974, there is a requirement to review a development plan every 5 years. In addition, there is a specific provision within the Act which would enable changes outside of the conventional plan preparation cycle. I intend to use this provision to bring an amendment to the House that adds greater discretion in EV charging stations. In so doing, Mr. Speaker, I will be sure to follow the process as outlined in the Act. Now, this process of changing planning policy is not a quick fix, and any areas of policy which may merit change must be fully researched, considered, and consulted upon to ensure a fully transparent and participatory process. Mr. Speaker, it is in the interest of anyone wishing to undertake development activity to familiarize themselves with what the requirements will be and what you can expect from the process. And hearing this information firsthand from the department would be highly beneficial. So, Mr. Speaker, in this regard, I have asked the director of the department to explore the possibility of intensifying community outreach initiatives, which will be to the benefit of all stakeholders. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, that brings us to a conclusion of the statements for this morning. We'll now move on. The next item on the order paper, reports of committees. There are none. Question period. The questions this morning are generated from the statements that have been given, and we have three members thus far who've indicated they have questions for this morning's statements. The first statement this morning is actually to the Deputy Premier. And Deputy Premier, you have a question this morning from MP Pearman. MP Pearman, would you like to put your question?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to the listening public. Good morning, Honorable Deputy Premier. In your statement to the House this morning on BOP, you said, and with your leave, Mr. Speaker, I'll quote, "I now have a draft plan for consideration. This plan will soon be released to the public for comment." Are you able to assist this Honorable House with how soon means?
Deputy,
Soon means one thing. It means soon. Thank you.
supplementary?
Well, I'll try a little harder. Soon next week, soon next month, soon next year.
Soon as it is ready to be released.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Second, Sub?
Yes, you also state that you're in receipt of the draft outline plan from the Fishermen's Association. If you're releasing your own plan soon, will your plan be delayed to take on board the comments from the Fishermen Association?
Deputy?
Mr. Speaker, I guess I'm going to have to read part of my statement again because I was very clear as to what I was going to do. And if you allow me, I will do that.
Go right ahead.
In order to ensure that all comments are carefully considered, I will be inviting a panel of advisors to review all of the comments received. This panel will include persons of expertise in marine-related areas who have been independent of the Marine Spatial Plan drafting process. The panel will provide me recommendations on how to address any issues that have been raised. And perhaps MP Pierman was distracted when I said this last sentence. The submission of the FAB will be reviewed by the panel for consideration. Thank you, Mr.
Sure.
I believe it answers the member's
So,
question.
let's hear the member's interpretation of that.
Yes,
Member,
thank
do
you. Thank you,
uh,
Honorable.
This would be a second
This would be
question.
my second question.
Correct.
Will that panel be providing their recommendations, having considered the fisherman's plan, before or after you release your own plan?
Minister?
Honorable member, Mr. Speaker, is not really listening to what I've said. The BOP plan will be delivered to myself, and then it will be delivered to the panel to consider. And anyone, including the fishermen, anyone who has an interest, any member of the public will be able to, having the plan that will be released, I said it'll be released to the public, will be able to see the draft and give any comment to the draft. Fishermen, water skiers, people who do boogie boards, whoever, will be able to give their comment. And the independent panel will review those. And then it will come back to myself for consideration.
Supplementary?
Supplementary. So I think from that answer, Honorable Deputy Premier, rather, excuse me, you will not be delaying your plan to take on board their considerations. Your plan will be going to the panel without taking on board their considerations.
I believe, again, Mr. Speaker, the honorable member is not listening. I said very much clearly in the plan, the submission of the FAB will be reviewed by the panel for consideration. Earlier in my statement, I have the copy of the FAB's document. I'm not going to cast any opinion on it at this time. It will go to the panel. As I've said, they will cast their independent opinion of it, and I will be advised by that. I believe my statement has been very clear. Very, very, very clear. And the honorable member perhaps needs to read it 1, 2, 3, or 4 more times to get understanding if he doesn't have it now.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Thank you. I don't think I've misread it. My understanding is you are not going to delay your plan. It's going to go to the panel, and it's not going to be delayed to take on board their considerations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I think some clarification here. I've interpreted something different.
If you have, Mr. Speaker, I'd love it. I'd love clarification. It sounded like the plan is going.
I don't want to see to go back. I don't see this going back and forth. I don't see it going back and forth. But I understood that the minister said there's a plan that's already in hand, so to speak. That plan will go to the board for review, and they'll take all the considerations, including the fishermen. And out of that, I expect them to now come back with something amended of consideration. So his plan is going to be viewed, or the fisherman's plan will be included in there. Am I correct?
It is possible that any of the submissions will influence the final recommendation, including the fishers, including the boogie board people, including the divers, any of them. They all will be given the same value and same consideration, Mr. Speaker. I thought that was very clear from the statement. The member is clearly trying to impute
Well,
a particular.
I was seeking for my own clarification.
Yes,
on
but
which side
the
was
member is
correct.
seeking
That's
to
all.
impute a
That's all.
certain purpose for what has been said, and that is frankly dishonest.
No problem. I just wanted clarification because I'm always mindful of the listening audience wanted to be correct on where it is, sir. And I think we've cleared it up, hopefully. Oh, yeah, it's clear?
It is clear. The answer to your question, Mr. Speaker, is crystal clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further question or supplementary?
No, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy, those were any questions for you this morning. The Minister of Works, the next questions are for you. The first is from the Government Whip, Opposition Whip, rather.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, Minister. On page 3, obviously, this is a tough time for yourself in having to manage this unfortunate circumstances we're in. You mentioned in the quote there from December 15th that the asphalt miller in particular is causing problems as well, being down. Had there been any consideration at any point in time to maybe, because it's been down for a while, that potentially we could rent a miller from usually I think it's Caterpillar that has those equipments, but has there been a consideration of potentially renting since it's been so long?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, let me first say that the miller is back in service, but it's old and unreliable. And we use, we both trade millers on occasion with Eastern Asphalt. There has been an attempt to see if not only could we rent a miller, but rent a plant. And the answer to that is negative, but included in the equipment that we're going to buy is a new miller. And I can report that whilst it's going to take about 6 months for the plant to be fully operational, the equipment will come as soon as we pay for it. They have the equipment that we're looking to purchase, which is a miller, a roller, and a new piece of equipment called a shuttle buggy, which is a machine that goes on site where you are paving works, and the asphalt goes into that so that that machine will keep the asphalt hot so that when you lay it, you don't have some of the challenges that we're facing now.
Supplementary? Second question? Minister?
Mr. Speaker, yes, I am aware. About 4 years ago, when they finished paving at the airport, they offered it to us. It was too expensive at that time. That piece of equipment is still here. We've had a recent look at it. The challenge with it is that it is Spanish made. And so the ability to get parts and support will be challenged. And my information is that they, having declined to purchase it, they intend shipping it off the island.
Supplementary? None? Thank you, Opposition Whip. Minister, you also have questions from MP Jackson. MP Jackson, would you like to put your question?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker, and thank you. My question to the minister is, I'm wondering if he would remind the Honorable House and the general public why the private large utilities are not repaving the roads after they have finished their road works and make them either the same as they were when they first started the road works or better than they had found them.
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the private utilities, as in this case Balco, do pave to reinstate the roads. The challenge with the trenching that Balco has done is that it must settle before you can go back and pave the whole half of the road. That is the requirement under the new instructions, that if you dig up the road, you got to do the whole half of the road. So Balco has paid for the reinstatement of their trenches, and we'll make a contribution to the repaving of the hill road. So we'll pay for half and they'll pay for half.
Supplementary?
No, Mr. Speaker, that's sufficient.
Okay. Members, that brings us to an end of the question period. We'll now move on. The next item on the order of the paper this morning are congratulatory and obituary speeches. MP Swarm, before I finish, are you on your feet? Would you like to make a contribution?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Go
Mr.
right ahead.
Speaker, I rise on a very sad note initially to have condolences sent to the family of Miss Pam Ban from St. George, whose siblings and who I knew very well. She was a constituent, uh, Sister Helen and Mona Lisa and Brother Linwood and her family and friends. She's well-loved person, familiar with East End Mini Yacht Club and many others in St. George will mourn her passing. Also, Mr. Speaker, my cousin, whose son sits in this house, Antoine Brangman, who I grew up with. His sister Jennifer was in my class, the brightest of the class. Cousin Iona, his mom, cousin Randy and Joanne and late Gina, Vaughn, and other siblings, Everett. Have condolences sent to the family, especially cousin Joshe. Also, and I'd like MP Jamal Simmons associated with these condolences to the Lambert family of White Hill, who I grew up with. Mr. Hubert Lambert died this week, but his wife, Miss Eleanor Lambert, died 2 months ago. So that's a double whammy for the Lambert family. But I grew up with that family. Steve and her son, we used to race to see who could be the first of the Salvation Army to beat the drum, but he had access. He had the keys and could lock the window. And then we boys were trying to get in around the backside, and he was always there to beat the drum. But she was a stalwart of, Mrs. Lambert was a stalwart of the Salvation Army Church, came to Bermuda from Canada and made her home in White Hill. And Mr. Lambert and his family are very much stalwarts in that community. And my condolences go out to them, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to make a contribution? Premier?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today and will take the liberty, if you may, of associating all honorable members to Access House as in a letter of condolence, but also to note the passing of Mr. Antoine Brangman, the father of the honorable member, MP Joshe Adams from constituency number 19.
Following your colleague just started.
Okay. Affectionately known as Slip, Antoine was a cherished member of our community, known for his kind demeanor and unwavering presence and symbol tranquility amidst life's tumultuous waves. Certainly, this community will mourn the memory of a true son of our culture, fondly known for his Hummer kites, which rippled across the skies of the Somerset community on Good Friday, and known for the calming sounds of reggae on a Sunday. As I said, Mr. Speaker, I'd love to associate all of my parliamentary colleagues in extending our deepest condolences, unwavering love, and steadfast support during this difficult time to Antoine's family, especially to his son, MP Adams, and to his granddaughter, Yara Michelle Adams, his rest of his family, his friends, and the entire Somerset community. There's certainly a personal story to share. I know that at a point in time, I did have the opportunity when there was a GP1, Mr. Speaker, to give Mr. Brangman a ride when we were going somewhere, and he was going, and I said, you can come along with me. And I know that he spoke about that opportunity and the chance that he actually got to ride with the Premier in GP1. But I had the good fortune of knowing him, and he was truly a remarkable person. And again, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to extend the condolences to the family and ask that we keep the thoughts of MP, our thoughts and prayers are with our honorable member and colleague, MP Joshe Adams. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to make a contribution? MP Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to send condolences to the family of June Morris. She was a long-standing constituent, and she certainly stayed loyal to the very end. And although our visits turned into telephone calls in the last few years, whether it was because we were shelter in place and as she became less mobile, but we did have very nice conversations. She was the wife of the late author Arthur Morris, and so a very good family, and certainly will be missed. And I just want to extend a real thank you and appreciation for her caregivers. She has been there for a bit. She was committed and certainly most responsive to Mrs. Morris and her needs at the most vulnerable time. I'd also like to send condolences to the family of Phyllis Simons. She's also affectionately known as Twiggy. I'd like to associate her godson, the premier, and also just specifically Sean and Shane and the entire family. I knew Mrs. Simons for her amazing goat curry. And she also was the first to introduce me to sorrel. And I really enjoyed her company. I will always, always remember the taste of her curry goat and her good spirit. And although she was living at the eastern end and I was at the western end, I certainly enjoyed every visit and send the best regards to her family at this time. Thank you.
MP Minister Birch. you
Mr.
have-
Speaker, thank you. I'd like to be associated with the condolences to Mr. Antoine Brangman, the father of MP Jay Adams. I'd also like to extend condolences to Mrs. Dolores, the family of Mrs. Dolores G. Thomas, who was eulogized this week. Mr. Speaker, if you knew Ms. Thomas, Mrs. T, as she was called by many visitors to this island, she treated everybody the same with grace and welcoming arms. And it was an interesting service. She has 3 sons, Kevin, Darian, and Dudley. And Dudley is a person of his own character who gave a 37-minute tribute to his mother. It was, it covered just about every aspect of her life. I'm not so sure she would have been well pleased with him speaking that long because she had a little tolerance for and lengthy diatribes. But I do extend condolences to the 3 brothers and the wider family of Mrs. Dolores Thomas. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to offer congratulations to Paget Primary, who yesterday held their Black History Month honoring a number of Black Bermudian heroes. A number of colleagues were there, and they'll probably speak to this as well. But what inspired me the most, Mr. Speaker, is that the students were so disciplined and excited about what it was that they were doing and learning. And as you went around to each classroom that highlighted each honoree, the students relayed their life story to you. One of the honorees, Mr. Speaker, is a constituent of mine, Dr. What's the first? Yeah, I was trying to think of her first name. Dr. Dorothy Matthews Painter, who's 101 years old, and she was present and present in the classroom, and just a lovely person. They had some of her equipment there from her hairdressing days, and it was. I said that. And so, yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to send congratulations to Paget Primary, but P6 Liverpool in particular. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
MP Simmons Reed rose very quickly that time. You have your 3 minutes.
Yes, for the 4th time. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. As I mentioned previously, I have approximately 33% seniors in my constituency. And in honor of their birthdays, I'm going to give 6 of them birthday wishes. Joseph Roque, who turned 75, Wellington Masters, who turned 75, Kenneth Wainwright, who turned 91, Albert Jackson, who turned 85, Emily Souza, who turned 94, Gwyneth Rollins, who turned 75, Edith Webb, who turned 87, and Linda Matthew Manders, who turned 75. I'd also like to associate myself with Paget Primary's annual Black History Month. Colonel Burns certainly covered most of what occurred, But I think it was so significant, as he mentioned, the number of students that did so much research and had so much knowledge of these individuals. And they also were able to speak for these individuals. Previous speaker, Randolph Horton, was one of the people who acknowledged. He was also there, and everyone, all the different students played a different role in terms of what he did. Now, in regards to Dr. Matthews, not only was she there, but she was there having conversations, talking about her life and all the things that she did. So she goes 102 this year. She was very articulate. Didn't seem like there was any dementia there. So I'd like to congratulate her on her 102nd year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. MP Fogo was up real quick that time.
Yes, I beat the deputy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning to the House and good morning to the public. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say condolences for at least two persons, one from my constituent, octogenarian and matriarch for St. David's, Mrs. Rauda Jones, who is sorely missed, a sweet and lovely person, and I guess the backbone of her family. St. David's will definitely miss her. The second person, and I'd like to associate Minister Michael Weeks with this, is Michael Swan, who was one of our classmates. Michael was an outstanding athlete. He was also quite versed in IT. Untimely death. What makes him outstanding is until the arrival of Hussein Bolt, I'd also like to associate Minister Robin. Until the arrival of Usain Bolt, Michael had an athletic character racket that he had set, and that racket was not met or beaten until Hussein Bolt arrived on the shores. He is also the son of a well-known matriarch who's long since passed, but who is very well known to the Berkeley Institute and the Berkeley Educational Society, his mother, Mrs. Swan. I'd also like to associate the Premier with these condolences because we will sorely miss Michael, his classmates. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Deputy Premier?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, Michael was a cousin of mine, so appreciate condolences being brought to him. But I'd like to bring a very positive recognition, Mr. Speaker, to the House. This past weekend, a centenarian celebrated their birthday, Miss Helena Bryce of Devonshire. Many of us who are familiar with Devonshire will know of Miss Bryce. She lives in a particular part of Devonshire, and I'm going to, even though he hasn't asked, associate the Premier with this part because I believe that his family and her family have a very close association. I'd like to associate the Minister of Education and also MP Christopher Famous as well. She's well-known matriarch of the Devonshire community. As there was some description made of Ms. Matthews, I would put Ms. Bryce into the same category. You would not know that she's 100 years old if you meet her and you deal with her because her liveliness, her alertness, and just her spirit. And there was an event for her, a private event held for her on the weekend, and she had multiple generations of her family in her small, humble home on Watlington Road in Devonshire, recognizing her birthday. And the Gumbays also turned up, but she's a true treasure of the Devonshire community and a treasure of Bermuda. So just like to make sure that her centenarian celebration is recognized, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
MP Ming, you have your 3 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker and listening audience.
Morning.
First of all, I'd like to be associated with the comments for Winifred Tam Ban and also for Miss Simons, Miss Twiggy Simons. Mr. Speaker, I rise today on a very sad note. You have iconic people that live within your constituencies, and one of mine was Mary Elizabeth Baston. And for those of St. George people, Mary is just Aunt Mary, she's Mama, she's Ma, She was much to many. She served in a capacity of volunteer for 20 years at the Center for Abuse. And in 2015, you may recall there was an article in the Royal Gazette where she spoke about why she did that for so long, and her upbringing and the strength that she got from her mom. She was truly just that strength. I know, and my role as politician for St. George's, she often would drop you a nugget, a good nugget, a bad nugget, or she definitely let you know how she felt. Aunt Mary, in my view, was very spicy and really was a person who exuded a whole lot of love. She was supportive in just about everything you could name for St. George's, from her church to she used to be active in tons of fun at the RAA club. And so what she shared was she was diverse and she got around many people. And everyone who dealt with her always would say one thing: she was truly loving and supporting. I wouldn't say she never had a bad word to tell you, because if she had something to tell you, trust me, she would let you know. She will truly be missed in St. George's. She'll definitely be missed at Richard Allen AME Church. I would like to associate MP Levita Fogo with these comments, and also Kim Swan, because being St. Georgians, we know the void that will be there with the passing of Aunt Mary Basin, and I'd like for her family to know that they're in our thoughts and prayers at this very difficult time. And on a positive note, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to also wish one of my constituents, Ms. Kathleen Blakeney, on CAF, as she's called. She celebrated her 95th birthday. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Minister Weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to be associated with the remarks for a former classmate, Michael Swan. He was probably the shortest in our class, but the quickest, as the MP from C3 has said. So we used to tease him sometimes, but you could imagine you could never get away from him when he started chasing you. He was a very good friend of mine and ours, and he will be sorely missed. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to be associated with the remarks for our fellow MP, Joshua Adams. I too knew his parents, and my heartfelt condolences goes out to him and his family. Mr. Speaker, on a brighter note, I too would like to be associated with the remarks of Paget Primary. I was up there with Minister Birch and a few of my other colleagues, and there were, I think, 13 people that were honored for Black History Month, but in particular, our former speaker, R. Randolph Horton, H. Randolph Horton, was there to greet us, and his history is vast. What contribution has made to the island. It's something when you see it all written down. Mr. Speaker, another one of the honorees was D. Nanetha Butterfield, a former MP and colleague of ours here on this side of the aisle. She too was honored for her contribution to our community. But before I take my seat, I also want to be associated with the congrats for Kiva Joel Benjamin. She is actually the first commissioner of corrections, and she has been the commissioner for about first female commissioner of corrections. Pardon me, Mr. Speaker. She is something that our young ladies can aspire to and be proud of, and I send my congratulations out to her and all the other honorees for Black History Month. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Minister Ferbert, would you like your 3 minutes?
I would so, Mr.
Go right
Speaker. Good morning to you. I would like to send condolences to 3 families, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Darrell Edwards of Hamilton Parish, Kitty Lane, his parents, Delbert and Veronica Edwards, wanting to send sympathies and condolences to the family. Mr. Edwards also has siblings, Karen, Damon, Denise, and Delbert as well. And then also one of my high school friends, Miss Elaine Brown Crockwell, known taxi driver, would like to send condolences to her family, wife of Garrett Crockwell and mother of the late Lene Brown, alumni of the Whitney Institute. Mr. Speaker, also wanting to send condolences to another one of my constituents, Mr. Michael Fahey, who is the father of former Minister Michael Fahey and his brother Stephen, wanting to send condolences to the Fahey family and his wife, Gwen. Mr. Speaker, I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge Paget Primary, like other colleagues have. They are in their 6th year of acknowledging Black history in Bermuda. Many of us say, well, Black History Month, which is usually acknowledged in the month of February, is one that is celebrated for the United States. But I want to congratulate Paget Primary for consecutively for this in their 6th year acknowledging Bermuda history. And I think it's very important that our children remain abreast of the information and history that we have in our community. And it is my hope that other schools take the opportunity to visit the museum and exhibit that Paget Primary puts on, or anyone in our community, if you have time to go and visit, because it is how they described it as a museum is stellar. And I only wish that they are able to, and we are able to, capture all the presentations that they've done over the past 6 years, because it is very museum-like. And also just wanting to send a congratulations to the Mirrors Super Camp. They held their first Super Camp for middle schoolers during the break of school, where we brought in persons from all over the country, about 9 countries, to participate in the quantum learning curriculum. And we had the opportunity to also educate parents and educators in regards to the quantum learning curriculum. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Would any other member like Minister Campbell?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to send condolences to 2 families. The first being that of Malvina Louise Robinson, who was in her 91st year. I had the privilege of speaking at her funeral, saying a few words. She is or was a constituent of mine, and I'd like to associate the deputy leader with that as well, with my comments. Condolences to her children, Eugenia, Barkley, Laquita, and she's the wife of the late Erskine Eugene Robinson. And the sister of a former member of this house, the late Stanley Morton. I had the honor of attending her 90th birthday party with the premier last year. And so condolences, I would like condolences to go out to her family. Also to the family of Millicent Brown. She was in her 98th year. And again, I'd like to associate the deputy premier and the premier with my remarks. She's the wife of the late Charles Boo Brown, mother of Randall Warren Dwayne, and special son, MP Neville Tyrrell. And yes, Savannah, Valerie Paula, and Leslie Brown. She's the aunt of MP Chris Famous and the great aunt, I believe, of Minister Jason Hayward. Both of these ladies were constituents of mine. Both lived on Boundary Crescent, within a couple of houses of each other. And so the Devonshire community and Boundary Crescent in particular have lost 180 plus years, almost 190 years of motherly correction, motherly love, and motherly wisdom. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. MP De Silva, you have your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to be associated with the condolences of our fellow MP, Josh A. Adams, for the loss of his father. also associated with the condolences for Vandal Brown's mother's passing. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate, and I declare my interest, Dr. Lynette Thomas, who is a nephrologist at Bermuda Life Center, and also head nurse Joe Keynes, the staff at Bermuda Life Center, and also some of the staff at Bermuda Hospitals Board, who together ably assisted the Bermuda Hospitals Board recently when their dialysis water treatment plant went down. They did a fantastic job, I think, and I thank them for their huge effort into accommodating and helping the hospital during that time. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to send out congratulations to the Seventh-day Adventist School in Southampton. As you know, Mr. Speaker, you'll be aware of the science fair that they used to have every year. And of course, COVID stopped that. So for the first time in a few years, I had the opportunity to attend along with the Minister of Education last night. And there are literally hundreds of people that attended, Mr. Speaker, and you will know because you've attended many times in the past. And it was a joy, it warmed the heart to look at some of the creations from our students at Seventh-day Adventist School. And in particular, the head boy produced his project. Too long for me to go into details now, but it was very interesting. I spent about 30 minutes with this young man whose aspirations are to become an engineer, and I have no doubt that he will get to that space in due course. And again, Mr. Speaker, while I'm on my feet, I have to declare my interest in giving congratulations to my great nephew, Eusebio Arruda, who is 6 years old and plays for PHC. And in the recent, and of course, everybody will know that I'm an Eagles boy, but hopefully when he gets a little older, he'll realize that that's where his place should be. But in the recent mini tournament that the BFA held in preparation for the Kappa tournament, he scored 8 goals during that mini tournament, 4 against Warwick, 2 against Crossroads, and 2 against Colts. And I will predict that this young man is going to play for Bermuda when he gets older. Thank you.
Any other comments? MP opposition whip?
Yes, thank you. Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to be associated with the condolences to Minister Tanae Ferbert's constituent, Michael Fay Sr. I did get to know him quite well, very much a quiet man, unlike his son, the well-known former minister from Senate, Michael Fay, his son. So I'd like to extend condolences to the family, to the sons and the grandsons, because it is truly a loss. He did a lot in Bermuda in a very quiet way, but he loved the country. So we must extend our condolences to former member in Senate and the loss. I'd also like to be associated with the Honorable Member Josh A. Adams' loss as well. I mean, it's tough when you lose a family member that close, a mother or father, or even a son or daughter. We've seen that in the past within this House that we have not been spared of that. And so all of us would like to extend our condolences. We know it's not an easy time for you. And you're here. You're here. So again, our condolences as well to the honorable member.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to make a contribution? MP Lister?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
First, I'd like to start off by association myself with the comments of Mrs. Dolores Tucker, the passing of her. She is actually my wife's godmother. So I'd like to just add my condolences. Mr. Speaker, it's always good to open up the newspaper and see good news of Bermudians. I'd like to send some congratulations to the Bermuda Dance Academy. They were recently overseas in Chicago competing at the Adrenaline Dance Convention and Competition, and the ages of 6 to 13, and they won numerous awards. As a result, a few of those that won the awards also received scholarships to continue they're dancing. So it's always good to see young people. Also, Mr. Speaker, son of the soil, that time to time the name does pop up, because as a footballer it does resonate with me. Mr. Connor Smith, Mr. Connor Smith, formerly a footballer, he's now going into coaching, and this season he will be starting his debut season as coach of Rhode Island FC in the USL League. So we wish him a good debut season, and associate members of the house. A few Crystal C's, MP Caesar, MP Fogo. I associate the whole house. Too many to name. Also, Mr. Speaker, I would also like to continue on where MP De Silva finished. As an alumni of Bermuda Institute, it's good that they have the science fair. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, but if you go back a week or two before that, they also hosted their 100 Man on Campus Day. And I want to say it is maybe over 20 years ago that they started it, and they've been continuing it. I remember when I went BI and we used to have it, and we have the football game, students for us as teachers or male parents. So it's good to see that they continue the 100 Man on Campus Day. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, to show how much good hard work and coming together pays off, last weekend, myself with members of my branch in Warwick West, we hosted a cleanup in our constituency in support with KBB, and also, ironically, the property that we were cleaning up, there was also the Bermuda National Trust was out there. It was good to know that we were able to clean up over 700 pounds of trash. 700 pounds of trash, Mr. Speaker, to help make that area look a lot better. So the work of the three groups come together and doing the cleanup, hopefully that can encourage other groups around the island to help get back to beautifying our island. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Does any other MP wish to make a contribution at this time? None other? Before we move on from condolences and congratulations, let me just add my remarks to a few that have been expressed already. I'll start off on the lighter notes, and the comments have been expressed to Patrick Primary on the Black History recognition for this time of year, for this month. I wasn't able to attend this year, but I was actually one of the honorees last year. So I know the dedication and commitment that not only the school, but the individual students themselves put into making it a success. And I'm sure this year is just as successful as those that I've seen in the past. And to Bermuda Institute, to support their science fair activity restarting. But on a sadder note, I'd like to be associated with the condolences that have been expressed to MP Adams on the passing of his father. As you know, his father is a Somerset boy. And in fact, I've probably known him all his life because his sister and I were the same age, his older sister, and we grew up playing together as children, and I still have a friendship. So my condolences not only to him, but to his entire family, because I know the family well, and it was we will miss him in the community. Mr. Lambert, the Lambert family, likewise, Mr. Lambert is a Somerset family as well. His son Stephen went to MP Swan's not there. His son Stephen was at Glebe with us, with MP Swan and I. So I've known that family most of my life as well, and my sharing their condolences. And to the Thomas family, Mrs. Thomas's son Kevin and Darian, again, are young guys that I grew up with and spent a lot of time with in my younger years. So condolences to them as well. And to Mike Swan, classmate to two of our colleagues there. I always tease about, I don't remember them behind me at Barclay, but I remember Mike. Always remember Mike, and Mike was always a good friend all the time when I saw him. And yes, he was always very fast at Barclay. He did have that career racket until Usain Bolt turned up here. So my condolences to those families. With that, we'll move on. Matter of privilege, there are none. Introduction of, personal explanations, there are none. Notice of motions for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, there are none. Introduction of bills, there are none. Notice of motions, there are none. That leads us to the orders of the day. And today is a follow-up from last week when we had the budget presented. Today we got the official reply from the opposition, and we'll start with that. But before we start, I'd just like to acknowledge, as we did last week, that the gallery is full of senators today, and I believe the opposition Opposition leader? You, Premier, and then with leaders, and then opposition leader, you'll have your start. At that time, the cameras will roll as they did last week for the presentation, and you'll have a clear presentation for your reply. Premier?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in regards to order number 1, I move that the estimates of revenue expenditure for the year 2024-25 be approved.
Any objections or none? Do you need a, one sec, do you need a minute? You're good? Okay, opposition leader, it's all in your hand. They're ready to go as soon as you're ready to start.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.